It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thanks for taking the ride with us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. Technical support is provided by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety, a 501c3 corporation. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Good morning, Alan.
Hey, good morning, Fred.
And with us, we are so happy to have Alex Roy, podcaster, columnist, documentary producer, director of special operations at Argo AI. We could go on a long time.
On the whole podcast.
Great to see you, Alex.
Hey, guys.
Very nice to have you.
You have such an incredible radio voice. Like, how could anyone not want to come on your show?
I know. Isn't it amazing? I mean, and then it's followed up by mine. I mean, people must be going, what the hell? But go ahead.
Well, Argo AI is a self-driving technology platform company with backers that include Ford Motor Company and the Volkswagen Group. It also has the No Parking podcast, which Alex co-hosts with Argo CEO Brian Selesky, and lots of other content at groundtruthautonomy.com. And Alex, you have a featured opinion piece there headlined, "Why Self-Driving Isn't a Race, It's a Game." And you write, people often ask you, who is winning the self-driving car race? And you say, if you want to predict a winner, you've got to know what kind of race is being run.
Well, thanks for having me on to talk about this, because every time I go out anywhere and someone knows where I work, in fact, all they want to talk about is, your investments, what company stock they should buy. And invariably it's like, but obviously Tesla's winning this and this and that, or it's Waymo, and it's just, it drives me nuts. So I thought I would write this piece. I guess I write a piece like this every few years where I just explain like the fallacy of thinking that things, especially business and life, is a finite game. And it obviously isn't. Like, games with finite endings are for kids, and real life isn't like that. And so this was in response to that. And actually, since we published last week or the week before, several news stories have come out where, once again, the self-driving race narrative is out there. And I'm hoping that every time that shows up, I could post this column in the comments.
Well, you point out that there's so much history to prove that the biggest companies, the once apparent winners, if you will, companies like Nokia, nobody could beat them in phones.
Nobody.
TWA, Pan Am, what can happen to them?
And actually, well, if you remember, MySpace, like the dominant social media company, and now Meta, even since we discussed doing this recording, Meta's collapsed 25%. So the notion that technology just stops because an arbitrary milestone was met and that it's over is absurd.
It really is. I mean, just think the flip phone, although the flip phone's almost back because now we have a foldable phone, but Motorola.
But it's not back. It's like we lost stuff too. It's like the original Motorola flip phone was plastic. You could drop it. It could survive a lot. It was really easy to use. My dad had one. I still have his phone on a shelf. I think it's important. I mean, I think you talk about it a lot. Technology has got to be for the sake of people, for the sake of development, or technology itself is again, another waste of time. And, even the, I don't know if I included this in the article. I took it out. There were so many more examples I came up with of arbitrary victories that meant nothing. Have you heard of Penn Central Railroad?
Well, of course. Are you kidding? I mean, I oversaw the conception and the interment of its follow-up, Conrail. So
Did you?
Who remembers that one? Okay, so I did the whole thing.
So I imagine that that as funny as Nokia seems to us today, with that headline in Forbes in 2007 had a headline which was, "Can anyone catch the cell phone king?" Which today seems hilarious. It's so obviously silly that that someone who doesn't even know the story at all, who's only ever used an iPhone, can see that and know that history is hilarious. And I'm sure that there's stuff going on today that's going to seem hilarious to us in the future. Although I don't want to name names. A certain company that's been in the press the past week for a few recalls. Well, you want to talk about that?
We will talk about that. Wait, but first I have a message on my device here. Hold on.
Wait, is that a BlackBerry?
Wrong with recalls.
My BlackBerry, yeah. I'm sorry. I got to answer.
Is that a BlackBerry? So look, basically, I wrote this piece in response to the silliness of the news cycle, and when I started drawing out, the analogies, became so obvious how silly this is. The even metaphors like it's not a race, it's a marathon. Even that doesn't make sense, because a marathon still has a winner who crosses the finish line, and although it's a longer race, fundamentally it's the same. It's linear. There's a start point, there's an end point, and it's over. Several people pointed out in the comments to my story when I posted on LinkedIn that there was a book that I was loosely aware of it, but I forgot the name of the author, called Finite and Infinite Games by an author named James P. Carse. I want to shout out to my friend Josh McManus, who's as close to like a real thought leader and intellectual in the space we have, who's not at an academic institution. He pointed out that Carse's book discusses this concept of finite versus infinite games back in the 80s. And it's something that other people have borrowed from and plagiarized, but he was the original guy. And that we should not pursue activities necessarily for the sake of just doing them. There should be a purpose, a goal. This struck me because of the analogies people use to pitch autonomous vehicle companies. They talk about moonshots, but a moonshot is, again, not a useful analogy because it's finite. You get there, it's over. The assumption is whoever got there first won. But a moonshot is actually a terrible analogy for autonomous vehicles, because it assumes that once you got there, it's solved, quote unquote solved, and that there's no more work to be done. But today, there's no moon base. You can't buy a ticket to fly to the moon as a tourist. Costs of going to the moon, I mean, some costs have gone down, but it's not a consumer product. It's still an experiment that gets easier over time with the knowledge you've got, but is not a consumer product. So what we want for autonomous vehicles, you talk about this in your show, you want them not just to be, quote unquote safe, but you want them to be accessible and to do good at scale. And that a moonshot analogy doesn't make sense there at all. And so I started going down the list of all the historical examples of things people thought were solved, but nothing's ever solved. Life is a series of constant improvements and innovations. And the difference between invention and innovation is getting that thing to people at scale and doing maximum good. So that's my rant.
Well, of course, it's very much the same rant that we've had here, and I'd like to, just say that that's the reason why I've been involved in the whole Trenton initiative, for so long, and pushed it so hard, and whatever. It's and in the discussing of this for Trenton, we never discuss LiDARs or the technology, or don't even try to say that there's no driver. The idea is that it be safe. Safe. It has to be. If you're not safe, you're not in the game. Okay, forget about it. Safe is not an objective; it's a floor. It's you got to achieve it, and if you don't, even forget about it. You're whatever. But that to hit the equitable piece, the affordable piece has to be there. And it's not affordable because a bunch of people are subsidizing the thing. It's because it's fundamentally inexpensive to put out there so that people who don't have a lot can actually use it to improve their lives. That's where the equity comes in, and it's mobility. It's not, oh my goodness, I could stick my hands out the window. Look, mom, no hands. That's an amusement ride. And if I look at the industry, through the $200 billion that has been invested in it, what is it? It's a bunch of It's a bunch of amusement ride. Oh my goodness, I have to go up steep hills, and I don't want to tell anybody how I go up steep hills. That's an intellectual property thing. And why do I want to go up steep hills? Is because the rich guy lives on the top. Are you kidding? That rich guy doesn't want this. All right.
Well, I will
Or,
say, Professor,
it's like goofy. Excuse me. It is goofy to do this in San Francisco for the people that have so damn much, have so much money, have so many drivers, have so many chauffeurs, have so much, and to do it there. I mean, are you kidding? Really? I mean, we're the people that around there who could really use some mobility. And unfortunately, have to put up with a bus that shows up who knows when, because they don't have a subway. Because of course subways don't go there. Oh my goodness! I mean, they only go where it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I know it drives you nuts. Well, I can't comment on the selection of cities.
I know you can't.
Without appearing biased. Look, I'm convinced that eventually autonomous vehicle technology will be deployed in such a way that it improves, cities and many, many communities. Like, I'm confident of it. Yeah. Who will do that? Well, I think we all know where I place my bets.
No, of course. Yeah, and we wish you all the best.
I do think though that it's
and we do think you should come to Trenton too, but that's a whole other thing. We aren't going to go there. Go ahead.
I'll come. I can't comment on anyone else. It's just the overpromising and under-delivering is really unhealthy. And I think that, well, I hope that journalists and your show will continue to call out companies like very aggressively for doing this, because I constantly meet people. I live in Miami, who ask me for when autonomous vehicles will come to their community, not because Argo, where I work, has promised a date and a time, but because someone else has promised they'll work everywhere, all over. Yeah. And it's just not. It's like I suppose if an airline or car inventor back in like 1910 said, "Don't worry, no one buy horses or cars, because we're going to offer you privately owned planes that can land in your backyard next year." That's not helpful. It's just not helpful.
I mean, some people are promising that now, that my car will all of a sudden convert into whatever, and then I can fly there. I mean, have you seen some of the stuff out there? It is like, you're going to scale that? What? I mean, are there going to be two of these, or are there going to be?
You mean really? The eVTOL guys, like the vertical takeoff and landing vehicles?
Yeah.
It's that is the problem you point out about equitable solutions or accessible things. It's incredible that anyone suggests that will be available at scale in modern urban population centers. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy because just the noise issue. I mean, I've seen some prototypes and systems that are much quieter, and I could see how that would be more palatable. But if you go to New York City, I remember when I was a kid, there were helicopters that landed on top of the Pan Am building.
Yeah.
One incident, I forget what year it was. Yeah, one eliminated that service for decades. And today you could land helicopters in Manhattan, but you've got to do it like on the perimeter of the island. And I think that there's just sometimes engineers develop systems without actually considering really who might benefit and where they might go. And that's fine. But to suggest that that's going to solve the world's ills is just silly.
It's silly. It's again, more for those that have a lot, or something for those that already have a lot. And then when they look at it, they'll probably roll their eyes and they'll buy their Sikorsky whatever that they've been buying for the last 25 years anyway, and they aren't going to get that one. And it is unbelievable. Okay, and in a sense, this is. To sort of get back to Trenton, because of course that's what I'm pushing or have been pushing. But of course, the objective there is not to test out the technology. One is assuming that the technology works. What the hell was the 200 billion spent for? At least in a little place, 8 square miles, or you can get it to work in a lousy 8 square miles. And we've even said with respect to that, we don't want it to work 365.25 days. We have a storm emergency in New Jersey coming up for this evening. The governor says stay home, okay? And we don't have any automated vehicles to keep home. You mean the automated vehicles are going to go out when the governor says stay home? I mean, cut it out. We're not looking to solve the stay home problem. I mean, look, why? Because who does that solve it for? It solves it for the people who already have so damn much mobility. The only mobility they don't have is when the governor says stay home. Whereas a lot of people, and not more than non-trivial number, my goodness, they have to stay home all the time, the 350 days when it's nice, because there's nothing to take them anywhere that they can afford. And it's absolutely totally silly. And I can't believe it. We are not solving the deep snow problem. We're going to wait for New Jersey DOT to go out there and shovel. We're not going to solve the fog problem in San Francisco. Are you kidding? You're going to really drive? You want to solve the fog problem? Go, okay, for Silicon Valley. I mean, they deserve everything. Okay, get out of here. Forget about it. I'm sick. I don't know. It drives me nuts. Sorry. Go. Come on, Alex.
No, yeah. On a kind of related note, did you see the New York Times op-ed this morning?
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
This is Farhad Manjoo, one of my favorite writers, wrote this column reviewing the Cadillac Escalade, and the headline was "My Big Fat Self-Driving Road Trip." And I had an issue with this, but it wasn't the one that someone else pointed out. My issue is that the Cadillac Escalade is not self-driving. It's got a driver assistance system that's quite good. It's called Super Cruise. But yet his whole column is about how this vehicle drove him around on this road trip and how he wasn't even really paying attention, and without really getting into the driver monitoring systems and other safety things that are in the vehicle. That's one thing. All right, so that's maybe a little pedantic. I have an issue with the language. But the other thing, this was pointed out, I think, by Doug Gordon or some of the guys from War on Cars, was that this article was like a wink, wink, haha, about how much he loved this large SUV. And I thought that was really interesting, that we, in 2022, you have a very popular, respected writer in the New York Times is writing this kind of love letter to this very large, heavy vehicle that that some would say is not the optimal way of solving mobility with a system that's not self-driving that he calls self-driving. And so there's a lot of mythology wrapped up in private ownership and weight and size that is just taken for granted in car reviews. And whereas the people who actually understand transportation issues and mobility and vehicle design are generally not writing vehicle reviews. And so you have these two lenses onto how people get around, and they're not talking to each other.
Well, I'll go farther, since I'm not in the industry. I'm just sitting here in this backwater institution here, in the swamps of New Jersey, whatever.
The swamps of Princeton. The cage of a professor's mansion on Princeton property, right?
Not Princeton. Well, Princeton town property, not university. Yeah, you got it. But how did we get here? At one point, we got rid of the Hummer, and we now have General Motors bringing back the Hummer. We not only have General Motors bringing back the Hummer, we have General Motors promoting the Escalade. I mean, what is it? We're supposed to be out there on our interstate roadways with tanks? I mean, are you really? Has anybody paid attention to the whole potentially environmental thing of these big things? And now we have the New York Times, who is some of the biggest tree huggers in the world, out there putting opinions that, oh my goodness, don't go in a vehicle that might be, more appropriate. Let's go out in one of these big ones, and then let's misbehave like Elon. Elon can say, hey, you don't have to pay attention. So, hey, I don't have to pay attention. And I go, ta, ta, ta. Have you seen their ad? And I can go down the street going, da, 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 da. Holy Mary, what are you doing? Okay, cut it out. Do you have what is this? Is this really Madison Avenue that's making you do this? At least they were promoting the E-type, okay? Whatever. I don't. What has happened? Holy hell! We've gone. Is this the '70s all over again? We're not gonna have. We got Dodge. Come on, Alex.
I'm gonna be an optimist. Although okay. Yes, I agree with you. I'll be an optimist for a second. Sometimes the beast moves slowly, but it moves. I suspect that in the coming years, this tension between truly autonomous vehicles, which you can sleep in the back, it's my rule, and anything else. Some of you have to sit in the front. That people are going to realize, and there's a bit of this in the media in recent weeks, that driver assistance systems don't necessarily improve safety. They're generally driver convenience systems. It might be.
We've been saying that for years.
Yeah. So a few people have made noise about it in the last week or so in the mainstream media, and I'm hoping, but I think this is going to happen, that as we see the gamification of more things, recently there's been an uptick in investment in pay-to-play games like more pegs and virtual worlds, and the metaverse gets play. I really think we're going to see a convergence of a couple of technologies in privately owned vehicles. One of them will be insurance products will get more creative and interesting. Maybe the pricing, I'm not going to say real-time pricing, but we already have devices which will connect to your insurance company, which will say, oh, you're braking too hard, you're driving more or less safely today. Maybe we'll see something like the driver education that's baked into driving games get baked into cars, like a head-up display or windshield that displays the correct line, the correct braking location. If you don't brake, it will start to brake for you. And maybe somebody will come up with a really fun way to execute this, which will combine insurance, driver's ed, and private ownership in such a way that even larger, heavier vehicles are safer than they are today. Every time I think it's all been done, I think my own column points it out. There's no deadline. There's someone out there always being creative. And generally, the United States has been a place where such people come. So as long as we keep our doors open to really to everybody who wants to build from scratch something really interesting, we could be surprised in a positive way. I hope that happens sooner rather than later, because this Escalade, I don't know, it's definitely not self-driving.
Yeah, well, of course. Well, I've used the term self-driving different than driverless. And self-driving requires that the driver pay attention the whole time. It is purely a comfort and convenience to make it easier to drive.
Well, Professor, I got to stop you right there. You, one of the strictest voices on clarity and language, are saying that you're cool seating self-driving to systems that require a human in the driver's seat?
Absolutely. It requires the drive because they're comfort and convenience, it started with safe driving systems that basically focus on safety, that require you to be there. And then the self-driving require you to be there, but they give you comfort and convenience. For years, I've said that it was the fins and chrome, for the dealerships, a way to sell it. It makes it easier. But it does not remove you from the responsibility of being the operator of the car. And if things go boom, you're responsible. Okay. And if you're responsible, then I guess, unless you're a total idiot, you better be paying attention. Okay. Now, as soon as we can hop in the back seat, and if, they'll call it BBAI, gives that to us. Okay. Then BBAI is the responsible entity. And it's the one that's going to have to buy the insurance or self-insure in case something happens. When I get into a United Airlines plane, I don't have to buy insurance to fly the plane. Okay, and do I know there's a pilot up there? I don't know. Maybe they're lying to me or faking it. They're taking me someplace. The plane
Same
crashes.
thing with an elevator, right, Alan?
And we get to the elevator, and I want to get to the elevator with Alex because, of course, it's in his article, and he came to my class and talked about the whole darn thing last semester, and it was great, and talked about it at Florida AV about it, and that whole thing. But there it's he or she who is operating the system to deliver mobility for me while I sleep in the back seat or sleep in the seat or sleep in the whatever. And they're the ones that are responsible, not me. Now, am I going to own it? Never. Why? Because if you're running that company, Alex, you will never trust me to keep me from misusing that sucker when you're the one that's responsible. If you're responsible, you say, hey, man, there's no autonomy. Where the hell did that word come from? These things will never be what, they run on their own? They have brains of their own? They have AI. There's no AI. I mean, cut it out. Autonomy is like, where the hell did that word come from? Sorry, go ahead.
At one point, when I was struggling with this years ago, and I was following you at a distance, I'm like, why we should really, instead of using the word autonomous, we should maybe call vehicles where you can sleep in the back autonomy cars. They're autonomy cars because they actually extend my autonomy. Like a car with driver assistance does not extend my autonomy because I'm still doing what I always did, sitting in the front doing a task.
Right.
So it's either task elimination or not.
Yeah, right. The thing, it's not. It's purely comfort and convenience. Anybody who tries to sell it as something else, now out of that comfort and convenience, because if I'm a truck driver.
Alan, I'm going to stop you for a second because your mic is rustling a lot. Raise it up.
I'm sorry. If I'm a truck driver, and I do this for a living, 10 hours a day to feed my family, maybe it'd be nice if I could hop in the back and sleep, but I need some help. Okay. So that, I don't have to be there, tense the whole time. I think stuff that will make it easier, like, lane centering, like intelligent cruise control. Oh my goodness. How simple. Okay, really, I don't have to focus, and don't give me heads-up displays that I have to now look at my windshield instead of the road ahead. I mean, cut it out. It's in my face the whole time. I don't want that stuff in my face. I don't think. I want to set my speed, like once a whatever, and instead of I gotta go exactly. I mean, what? These things do that. These are wonderful systems. Why can't we just be happy with that piece of it? Okay. And then move on to this stuff. If we can get the thing, if it's smart enough to know what the hell to do, then it should do it. But my view is that the person who makes that is the one that's responsible for that. And when they put it out there, anything goes bad, it's on them. Otherwise, don't put it out there.
Yeah, otherwise, okay, I'm not getting in the back of that autonomous vehicle.
Right. I mean, I don't know.
So let me ask you guys this question, because sure. When I was trying to figure out how to explain the autonomous vehicle industry to people, I was looking for historic games that or games we played as kids that would set up a framework, a thought framework. And so when I go back to when I was a kid, I remember playing operation, which taught me the basic concept of have a steady hand before you perform sensitive work. And and I was thinking like checkers is an interesting game because you teach it to kids starting at 3 or 4. What is checkers? Checkers, I mean, you have to plan 2 or 3 moves ahead, and if you plan far enough ahead, you can jump multiple pieces, and that the notion like of a Hail Mary pass in life kind of comes from checkers. But if you play chess, if you pull out a chessboard and you lay out the pieces, the chess pieces, to a child who's never played chess, but they know checkers, they may apply checkers rules to these pieces that are unrecognizable. And so all these games we play as kids, I think have a much greater effect on our thought processes later in life, depending on the sequence in which we learn them and who taught us. I think it's really important. So what games did you play, Alan?
I don't think we're allowed to call those games anymore because they're sort of,
lawn darts. Like, I mean, how old were
let's
you?
Let's call them cops and robbers or something. But we didn't call them cops and robbers. We called them cowboys and whatever. I mean, I don't know.
But you played strategy games as a kid. You played board games. What'd you play?
I played a lot of Stratego with a friend.
You played Stratego, Fishkin, is that right?
Yes.
Did you play Stratego after learning to play chess or before?
Probably about the same time. I don't know which came first specifically, but probably Stratego first.
Stratego is an interesting game for those who had never played Stratego. It's it's elements of chess. You line up 2 rows of troops, but the strengths of the forces are concealed from your opponent. Imagine playing chess, but not knowing which ones are the rooks or the pawns or the queens or kings. And that is, I mean, in a way, there's a concept that you want to learn maybe after playing chess, because in real life, you often don't know what you're up against. In chess, you do. And so that's a very interesting game to bring up, Mr. Fishkin. It's a very important game.
How about Monopoly? Play Monopoly, but and then you like Risk. I think Risk is like, I think I played it once, and I think the people that we played it with, we never spoke to them again. So
the thing about Monopoly, I'm writing a sequel to my column that should run maybe by the time this episode airs. Where I talk about the games that teach us to see which games provide a good lens for the world. So I was thinking about Monopoly, and my daughter, who's 3.5, saw me playing it with other adults, and she saw the car. The car is one of the pieces you can use in the game to represent yourself. She saw the car sitting unused in the box, and so she just picks it up, walks over to the Monopoly board, and then drives it around the entire board perimeter and declares, "I won." And so that is interesting, because you can see how kids would apply the race analogy to other games, which is not helpful. And that is what's happened to the autonomous vehicle sector. But obviously my favorite game as a lens for this is Risk. And it's because I assume, as you pointed out, that safety as a concept or trust is not an end goal, it's table stakes. And so on the assumption that multiple companies will develop autonomous vehicle technology, like who scales that out into a business depends on things that are not about technology, but about like leadership and like business model. And so Risk, for those who forgot how to play or never played before, you have a simplified map of the world. If you place pieces in the setup phase around the board, you place them in an optimal way. Imagine you deploy them all and say Australia. There's a flywheel effect. If you possess all of the territories in one continent, then on the subsequent turn, not just do you receive more armies, but there's a network effect, a flywheel. So you might receive, I forget what the number is, 10 or 20 or 30% more armies per turn for possessing an entire territory. And so the game is largely like tic-tac-toe, which is one in the first move, you put an X on the center square. Risk is a game that's largely won based on how you deploy the setup phase before you ever fight. And so if you look at the map of the world today in the autonomous vehicle sector, you've got a constellation of companies that have set up shop to test in various cities, but you have very few cities in which 2 or more companies have set up head-to-head to test or deploy. And just this past week, we've seen for the first time a Cruise in San Francisco claimed that they're opening their vehicles up to members of the public. Waymo's there too. And so if one takes a very narrow view, one might say, oh, Cruise beat Waymo at San Francisco. That's not really a helpful lens at all, because if you step back and look at the risk game board of the world, how many cities is any company testing in? How many could they possibly commercialize in the next, say, 3 to 5 years? And how quickly can they then expand to more cities to commercialize there? And as you pointed out, actually do something for the communities in which they commercialize. Because in any given city, there are many businesses to be developed around autonomous technology. One of them is moving people, but there are many others. So I'm working on this article about the risk, article series about using risk as a lens, because if you really want to get technical and think of the way strategists do at AV companies, you would have multiple risk boards stacked, one for each type of business you want to build in that city or region. And a little bit like how, I guess, in Star Trek, there was an episode where they played chess in 3 dimensions. So imagine you're playing Stratego in 3 dimensions and you don't know the strength of everyone else's pieces. And then you start to get a picture of what the world looks like. Anyway, that's my thinking these
Alex,
days.
is there a message for Wall Street and investors in this who are looking at profits this quarter and next quarter when it comes to developing this?
Well, I guess my message would be to step back out of the forest and look at the total landscape. It's it's not that hard to see if you take a map, start putting pieces on it, and then expand that map out and look at the big picture. So
I guess if I can jump in here, because for what the hell, again, I'm not in the industry. I'm outside of it. But what was very important, I'll say to me, instead of dragging a bunch of other people into it, in Trenton, in New Jersey, is to first create a welcoming environment, to create the field of dreams. And you can do this, and one can do this business in 2 ways. You can do an Uber way, in which you come in and you say, lawyer up, or you can come in which you have a field of dreams and people are welcoming you to come. And to me, as I look at this business and being in transportation, longer than whatever, and I don't want to comment on how good reaching the moon and that ending was, because it was an ending, which meant an ending that I wouldn't go to Mars, and therefore I had to find something else to do. So I decided to, apply automation for mobility in cities 50 plus years ago. And so, pivoted that way. But the obvious thing to me is that when you go and you want to really provide mobility in a new way to cities, entities, localities where people live, my goodness, if they don't welcome you, you're not going to go there. You don't stand a chance. They will cut your whatever's off instantly. Okay.
That is the best moat there is a community that feels respected, that for whom some company has a product that does something real for them. That's Absolutely. The best moat. That's the moat.
Absolutely. That's the only moat. That's the only mode in which you have a chance. because they will find ways. Now, we have scooters in cities, and we have bicycles, but I mean, it's like kicking and screaming and all, and because they're essentially free, people threw them in there, and who knows how long they're really going to last, and which groups of people really use them besides 16-year-olds, and so on, and whatever. But the key to me is, my goodness, if you don't have a field of dreams, you don't have a chance. To me, why is Waymo? Again, I know nothing internally. I haven't been there. I haven't seen it. Why is Waymo in Chandler? It's because the governor created a field of dreams in Arizona, said, come here. I mean, even in Love, California, with all of the stuff that's been done there, oh my goodness. I mean, you go down the dead end street and the people call the cops on you, and whatever. And we'll see how well it goes in San Francisco, and how well they've been in there, how long, how much money. They live there, and the rolling of the eyes, and who are they serving?
Well, did you read, what was it, Jeffrey Tumlin? You know Jeffrey?
Yeah, I know Jeffrey.
He made, a few weeks ago, he was tweeting. He did not appear thrilled about the rollout. I don't want to misquote him. You should have Jeffrey on your show. I'd love to hear what he has to say.
I should. We should invite him, Fred. We should see, have him come on. This is not easy. This is just not easy. I've been through the planning, whatever, town meetings here in Princeton. Tried to do it in Mercer County, and I mean, I got my legs chopped off. I mean, I didn't even know it happened. I had nothing from my knees down. They were gone. For over what? And if you don't have that, oh my goodness, and you think you're going to scale? How many lawyers do you think you're going to need to do that?
On that note,
what?
I'm going to quote again Josh McManus, you should have him on your show. McManus said something really interesting years ago. He said, if you want to deploy autonomous vehicles, communities have to vote for autonomy. He didn't mean vote like in an election, like for a candidate who supported it. He meant vote with their feet and dollars and hearts. And I thought that was a really important way to see it.
Absolutely.
As I've said, I don't know how many times in this thing, Fred, if I don't want one of these things going down my street, Cleveland Lane here, I'll send Peggy out there. It'll stop for Peggy.
Peggy's a dog, by the way, folks.
My dog. I'll jack it up, get some cinder blocks, and I'll steal its wheels.
Well,
okay?
What I'm going to say to that.
Seriously. I mean, you people have to be embraced. The blood, sweat, and tears that we're going through in Trenton with Trenton Moves is to deal with the sociology of this technology, not the technology, is to get the people for which it is supposed to provide benefits and will value it to actually see the benefits and make sure that, in fact, when it comes there and is designed, it really is for them. Else, they'll jack it up and steal the wheels.
Well, Professor, that sounds like that's the tweet. That's the episode.
And we're going to have more on that in just a minute.
More. I'm sorry.
There's some news there.
Yeah.
But first, we want to remind folks about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The symbol is MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On their website, check out the white paper. It's called The Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Some interesting information there to help you make informed decisions about investing. ETFs, you probably know, can be a good way to spread risk with investments. Maybe focus on a particular category of stocks. The website again is motoetf.com. We are back with more of Smart Driving Cars and our guest, Alex Roy, Director of Special Operations at Argo AI. Check out the No Parking podcast, which Alex hosts with Argo CEO Brian Selesky. Alex, before we turn to some of the latest headlines in Alan's newsletter, what do you think the public should understand and expect when it comes to the technology here, and maybe a little more about Argo AI's goals?
I can only represent myself on this show. I was a skeptic for a long time about all this, but I'm actually a great optimist today. If once you understand the difference between autonomous vehicles and vehicles that have assistance, and you judge them each for what they are, it's pretty easy to see what's going to happen. Autonomous vehicles are going to roll out. They're going to take time, and they're a completely different technology than driver assistance. And I had a column a few months ago, which was "Don't throw out the autonomous baby with the self-driving bathwater." Actually, no, sorry, no, rephrase. It was "Don't throw out the autonomous baby with the Tesla autopilot bathwater." And that for me sums up everything, because you cannot judge one thing, apples, by the behavior of oranges. You just can't. It doesn't make sense.
They are totally different. I've called them almost orthogonal things. Doesn't necessarily mean one evolves into the other type of thing. One is comfort and convenience, the other is mobility. I mean, they're different. They're just fundamentally different. They're not just, hey, they might both use a LiDAR. Okay, great. They might both use a computer. Oh, wonder. And algorithms. Oh,
but, like escalators and elevators, two different things.
Escalator, absolutely. They're different things, okay? Although they're somewhat similar because they provide mobility, and the person that provides it is responsible for it. But go ahead, yes.
It's like comparing an umbrella and a parachute. They're both
the
made
umbrella
of
and the parachute is. I don't know who started that one, but I know Brian Walker Smith picked up on that, and I just thought it was great. I mean, holy hell! Hey, I'm a parachute here. I'm going to. It's a great one. It is a great one.
Well, Alan, let's get to the news here.
Yep.
On top in the newsletter, following the announcement by New Jersey Governor Murphy in December, unveiling Trenton Moves, the project to provide a safe, equitable, and affordable, high-quality, on-demand mobility service to Trenton residents. Well, there's a significant milestone on tap for next week.
Yeah, next Wednesday, it's out, it's public. The press has been invited to a, I guess, celebration or something that's going to be hosted by the mayor, by the commissioner of transportation, and by the superintendent of schools in Trenton, announcing that Trenton has been awarded $5 million from the DOT to basically do the front end, sociology piece of this thing, the public engagement piece of this thing, and it's being done at Trenton High School, and key in the whole process there, at least I think. Again, my interpretation of the process is that the schools are an integral part of the community engagement process, and in some sense, some of us are looking to the kids in Trenton schools to basically be the emissaries of this and the beneficiaries of it. So, if you're rich and under, I think, 17 in New Jersey, you can't drive. So you need to be chauffeured by your parents, which is a wonderful family activity that families just love all the time. Certainly maybe the first time, after the 2000th time, who knows? But why shouldn't kids have mobility? Why shouldn't they be able to get to where they want to go? Why can't they go across town to go shoot hoops? Why can't they go to the library? Why can't they go to go get ice cream someplace? Why they have to be chauffeured? Why does it have to be just within walking distance? And in some sense, to get to school and to integrate, supposedly this has some sorts of advanced technology STEAM, STEM, who knows what it's called in schools. Why not have them involved? Why not, sort of pump up the student body to get engaged, not only in what is going to provide them a mobility, an upward mobility for them, but also intellectual mobility, and also technological mobility and interest and experience and so on. So in some sense, one of the key elements of our field of dreams here are the youth, are the kids in Trenton, and have them, and in some sense not using them, getting them engaged. It has been amazing, the response that we've gotten from the superintendent of schools, his enthusiasm for this to really help not only the economic development of the city, but the educational and technological improvement of the kids. And so, oh my goodness, with that reaction, with that kind of interest in the field of dreams that we've created, not only with the governor, not only with the commissioner, not only with the mayor, not only with the legislators from the Senate and the assembly, not only from the faith community, not only from the business community, not only from the residents, but also from the educational system, fundamental educational system. And if you look at the fundamental educational system in some of our cities, it's not pretty. And we have the opportunity here in Trent to improve it here, to do that and all this stuff. So am I excited about it? Absolutely. Unfortunately, it takes place when I have class and whatever. So I don't know. I guess I'm not involved. So
let me get you to move your mic up again.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have class, but whatever. I don't know if I'm involved or
but
whatever.
This is at the same time that the state is out there asking companies to come in with ideas for how this could work.
Yeah, well, we've had New Jersey DOT has had an RFEI out there. It's due January or February 11th, or the responses that are due. That is just that is a mechanism by to signal to the investment community, the developers, the people who think that they can actually do this, that in fact, we have a serious business opportunity in Trenton for this. It is a start, and it's purely to provide mobility. We don't want to do testing. We want to do deployment for mobility to improve the mobility situation at Trenton. And the argument to do it in Trenton is that 70% of the households have access to one or fewer cars. And it's not because we have a New York City subway system in Trenton that they have a way to get around. The way they have to get around is walking and waiting for a New Jersey Transit bus, which tries desperately to do as best they can. But my goodness, you can't do, with a bus and a driver, what can you do? You can't do 24/7. Okay, and they certainly don't do better than 350.
So the bottom line here is that things are moving.
Well, now, hey, I couldn't be more pleased. I mean, whatever, personally, for whatever that means, I'm just I'm just back here in the backwaters of Jersey, and whatever.
Say the backwaters of Princeton, New Jersey.
Well, whatever.
The river is nearby, so
whatever. No, seriously. Look, there is, how many? I think in terms of the number of so-called driverless or autonomous or self-driving vehicles in New Jersey, besides the large number of Teslas, there have been, one by NVIDIA. There's been my couple from the DARPA challenges, and we had the Ollie show up once. Okay, and that's it. Otherwise, all the whatever you name, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the world, New Jersey. Oh my goodness, I don't know. We don't. People live there. They might have mobility needs. We don't want to go there. I don't know if that's really what they say, but they certainly have. Oh, excuse me, I missed it. Damn it. Sorry, Waymo is here. The cars that they're using to drive around Manhattan, to supposedly map Manhattan. Can you imagine? We're mapping Manhattan again. Map Manhattan are actually parked in Jersey. I think that somebody said, they actually drive them every day across the tunnel. Do you know what the toll is on the tunnel these days? We're getting revenue out of.
That's because how much it would cost
goodness.
to park them in New York. That's
yeah. Sorry.
Is it $16? How much?
$16, I think. I don't know. I mean, I had sticker shock. I mean, Verrazano Narrows Bridge, when it was 13, I thought, okay, it's the Verrazano Narrows. I crossed that sucker 14 times in 14 New York City marathons. So, sure, I'll pay for that sucker, but whatever. Tunnel 16 or something. Holy, whoa.
Some other headlines to get to quickly, Alan.
We got
from FreightWaves, a report on a nearly $50 million funding round for parallel systems for autonomous battery electric rail vehicles to move freight. You had some comments on that.
Yeah, well, it's the second sort of thing that we've seen on that. I think it's a great idea. The opportunity to be able to move without a two-person crew containers on the nation's rail system, that would be like fantastic. That would mean that you can, may basically move one double stack, whatever. Just think the frequency, just think of the opportunities, just think of the origin destinations you can serve, as opposed to waiting until you have 200 of them that you can put who knows what up front that you can afford to have a two-person crew drag them. Okay, a real opportunity, but I'm not so sure that necessarily the way they're looking at it is they want a dynamic form Congo trains, dynamically come together and then separate apart. I tried to simulate that once. It doesn't work well, and I don't see it operationally that it would work in the nation system. But again, I played with the nation's railroad system for 25 years. So
you've got an electric train behind you on the mantle. Then there's a report from New Atlas on a video from the Toyota Research Institute that got your attention. It shows a Supra in autonomous mode doing drifts around corners and planted obstacles. You are not a fan of this.
I'm not a fan. I am just not a fan. So what? For whom? Another 1% of the 1%ers, go. Toyota, go for it. Okay. All right. Look, I mean, let's get serious about it. We don't have these things moving at 25 miles an hour, moving to anybody safely yet anywhere, except for maybe two places, one in the middle of the night in San Francisco and the other one in where they have, where 70% of the households own two or more cars. Come on. I mean, how can they really? That's what a research clickbait.
Some quick Tesla headlines of late. The latest, a recall of, I think, 88,000 vehicles over seatbelt reminder alerts. Earlier in the week, Tesla said it would perform an over-the-air software update to disable the rolling stops at intersections. We talked about that, I think, already.
Yeah.
And there were reports that some drivers were experiencing unexpected braking. That's in the news as well.
Yeah, look, the unexpected braking is because of the Society of Automotive Engineers for years have said that my goodness, we can't have unexpected braking in cars, otherwise there are going to be rear end collisions. And so to avoid rear end collisions, turn off the automated emergency braking system. And I've been complaining about that for years. It is the wrong trade-off. Okay, why don't you improve your automated emergency braking system so that the false alarm rate is less, so that the braking doesn't occur as often? And secondly, I don't believe any of these cars come to full stop. Okay, so maybe there's the thing's on and it hits the brake a little bit. My goodness, my wife complains about my driving that way all the time. Why don't you hit the brake? Would you hit the brake? Oh, I thought I saw something, but I didn't slam on the brake and come to a rest. Why would somebody develop an automated emergency braking system that did that? And so what does that cause them to do is to turn the damn things off until you're 1.6 seconds before collision. And then the Mercedes tightens this, closes this, puts in the thing so that the engine doesn't take your legs off, and slams on the brakes as hard and everything goes to hell. Why didn't it start to brake 3 seconds before collision and start slowing down? Oh, because it wasn't sure. Well, damn it, be sure. I don't know. I mean, this is like crazy stuff, okay? And it's a shame because the automated emergency braking systems, as IIHS's testament showed it to us, yes, they finally improved such that IIHS grants some a good, okay? But come on, damn it, design those damn things better. It's a shame. Sorry. Whoops.
Meanwhile, and finally, Tesla started.
Poor Alex has to stand into my raves. I don't know. I'm sorry, Alex.
Elon doesn't spend a penny on advertising, but the Tesla started selling the Tesla mic for in-car karaoke in China and sold out quickly. So
does that mean in karaoke, does that mean I have to sit there and I read the words as they're coming off?
That's what karaoke is, I think.
Isn't I don't know. I don't party. I don't go to those things. I think, are you kidding? Once again, is it bad enough that we were playing games while driving down the street?
Wait, now we're going Professor, hang on a second. Do we know for a fact if that it's meant to be used while the car's in motion? Because it could also just be connected to the karaoke game while charging, right?
Yeah, sure. And if the car is not in motion, which he can do over the air update and all that stuff and make sure that it, and so on. And he can make sure cars stop at stop signs, or he can say, hey, I'm going to let the thing roll through, but I'm going to guarantee that that it's safe. And I know it's safe. And Elon, is going to pick up the tab if something bad happens, okay? If he's willing to do that, then sure, let's roll through. We don't need to stop. The reason we stop, again, is because we got to look this way and look that way. That takes time. I mean, we're human. Look at what the hell we have to do. Man, if we got like cameras that can see it, boom, in 4 nanoseconds, say, hey, yo, you don't have to stop. But boy, Elon, if you're going to give that to me, you're the one that's responsible. And if somehow there's somebody and it goose up, you pick up the tab and you make the things back to being good or better or as best you can. You're willing to do that? I personally love you. You put it on me? I don't know what the hell you put in the code. I don't know what Dojo said. I don't have your sensors and whatever, and your LiDARs or non-LiDARs, or radars or non-radars, or cameras or non-cameras. That's just like your car.
Have you invited Elon onto your show?
No, I can't get to him. No, I can't get to him.
We have tried, but haven't.
Yeah, no, I mean, he shouldn't come on my show. He's a busy guy. He's a brilliant guy. He's doing a lot of fundamental. They're gonna three SpaceX launches this week. He's going to he returned 2. He's going to return. And I mean, like, fantastic stuff, non-trivial accomplishments. Come on, would we run? Well, unfortunately, Alex, I don't know. He should come on your show, my show. What the hell? Again, backwaters of Jersey.
Well, Alex, we do appreciate you taking time with us. Keep up the great writing, podcasting, all
Absolutely.
The work at Argo. Thank you. Thank you for taking time with us.
Yeah, and love having you. Thanks a lot. Great day.
Thanks, Mr. Fishkin, Professor Kornhauser. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO. More information is available at motoetf.com. Technical support is provided by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety, a 501c3 corporation. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com. Wherever you turn to for podcasts, your smart speaker can play us too. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching. Please stay safe.